In an unprecedented twist of geopolitical fate, the United Kingdom stands trembling on the precipice of a cataclysmic confrontation with the United States, propelled by the unrelenting fury of Donald Trump. No longer content to confine his ire to Canada, Trump's wrath now surges toward Britain with ferocious intent, threatening to shatter the fragile threads of alliance that have bound these nations for generations. At the heart of this brewing tempest lies a fateful decision by Britain's Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to cast his lot with Canada's audacious new leader, Mark Carney, a man openly forging an anti-Trump coalition. What began as a diplomatic gesture has erupted into a declaration of defiance, one that Trump has taken as a personal affront. The consequences could be nothing short of catastrophic, heralding an economic and political maelstrom that might forever alter Britain's place in the world. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Will Britain withstand Trump's vengeance, or are we witnessing the beginning of our nation's downfall? Subscribe to our channel now for the latest revelations on this escalating crisis. Your subscription is not just a choice, it's a lifeline to stay informed as the world teeters on the edge of chaos. Don't miss a single update. The future of our country hangs in the balance. The origins of this perilous saga trace back to a seismic shift in transatlantic relations. For months, Trump has waged a relentless trade war against Canada, branding it a treacherous foe and battering its economy with crippling tariffs, 25% duties on aluminum and steel that have left industries reeling. Yet, rather than cower before Trump's economic onslaught, Canada's newly minted Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has chosen defiance over submission. Eschewing the path of groveling diplomacy in Washington, Carney embarked on a bold journey across the Atlantic, seeking allies to bolster his resistance. His arrival in London was no mere courtesy call, it was a spectacle of solidarity, marked by a regal audience with His Majesty King Charles at Buckingham Palace and a high-stakes summit with Starmer at 10 Downing Street. This was not a quiet meeting of minds, it was a thunderous proclamation to the world. Britain and Canada stand united against Trump's tyranny. Starmer, in a move that has stunned observers, did not merely extend a handshake. He threw his full weight behind Carney's vision, embracing a partnership that directly challenges Trump's global dominance. To Trump, a man who thrives on loyalty and punishes disloyalty with ruthless precision, this was an act of betrayal, an unforgivable sin that demands retribution. In a blistering address, Trump wasted no time in firing his opening salvo, denouncing Canada as a failing state conspiring against American greatness and issuing a chilling warning to Britain: align with Carney, and face the consequences. The unspoken pact that once shielded the UK from Trump's trade wars, a delicate balance of neutrality, lies in tatters, and Britain now stands exposed to a storm of vengeance that could reduce it to a shadow of its former self. To comprehend the gravity of Britain's predicament, one must first understand the nature of the adversary Starmer has provoked. Donald Trump is no ordinary statesman. He is a titan of retribution, a leader who wields economic might as a weapon of war. History offers a stark lesson: when defied, Trump strikes with devastating force. Recall his first term, when Canada's then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dared to resist Trump's trade demands. Trump's response was swift and merciless. Tariffs rained down on Canadian exports, mocking Trudeau as weak and dishonest on the global stage, and plunging Canada's economy into chaos. Industries crumbled, exports stalled, and Trudeau was left scrambling to salvage his nation's dignity while Trump reveled in his triumph. Now, with Carney picking up the mantle of resistance, Trump's fury has reignited, and Starmer's decision to join this fight has escalated the stakes to a terrifying new level. Imagine the nightmare unfolding. Trump, in a fit of rage, imposes a 25% tariff on British goods overnight. The UK's automotive giants, Jaguar Land Rover, Rolls-Royce, would stagger under the blow, their exports to the US, a market worth billions, rendered uncompetitive. Factories would shutter, workers would flood the unemployment rolls, and an industry already battered by post-Brexit woes would face annihilation. Pharmaceuticals, another cornerstone of Britain's economy, would fare no better. With billions in exports to the US at risk, drug companies could see profits evaporate, research funding dry up, and medicine prices soar, leaving the NHS and patients in crisis. Agriculture, too, stands on the brink. British farmers, already struggling to compete with American agribusiness, could find their lamb, beef, and cheese priced out of the US market, their rural economies collapsing in a cascade of despair. Beyond trade, Trump holds a more sinister weapon: financial influence. With a word to Wall Street, he could trigger a mass exodus of American investment from British markets. The London Stock Exchange, a pillar of global finance, could plummet, wiping out billions in a heartbeat. The pound, already weakened, could plunge to historic lows, igniting inflation and thrusting millions of Britons into financial despair. But the terror does not end there. Trump's arsenal extends to the very fabric of international relations, threatening to sever Britain's lifelines to the global stage. The United States, as the world's preeminent superpower, holds sway over alliances, security pacts, and diplomatic corridors. If Trump deems Starmer's alliance with Carney an act of war, he could unleash a campaign of isolation that would leave Britain stranded, a pariah among nations. Picture this chilling scenario. Trump orders a review of all bilateral agreements with the UK. Intelligence sharing networks, the bedrock of Britain's defense against global threats, could be curtailed. The Five Eyes alliance, comprising the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, has long been a cornerstone of British security. Yet Trump, a man who thrives on loyalty tests, could restrict the flow of critical data, leaving MI5 and MI6 blind to emerging dangers. Cyber attacks, terrorism, and espionage could surge unchecked, with Britain powerless to respond. The message would be clear: defy Trump, and pay the ultimate price. NATO, where the UK has held a commanding voice, could become a battleground for Trump's vengeance, with priorities shifting to favour loyalists like Poland or Hungary, relegating Britain to the periphery. The UK's military prestige, forged through decades of partnership with America, could erode overnight. Worse still, Trump might pivot toward the European Union, not out of affection, but to tighten the noose around Britain's neck. A handshake with Brussels could prioritise EU-US trade, leaving the UK stranded between two hostile powers. The EU, emboldened by American favour, might impose its own barriers: higher tariffs, stricter regulations, dissolving the vision of global Britain into a cruel jest. Commonwealth ties could falter too. India, a key trading partner, might waver under Trump's influence, distancing itself from London. Middle Eastern allies like Saudi Arabia could follow suit, limiting energy markets and military cooperation. Even the United Nations might become a stage for humiliation, with Trump's allies chipping away at Britain's Security Council clout. The prospect of Britain reduced to a diplomatic bystander is a grim reality Starmer has invited by standing with Carney. As this external storm gathers, a parallel tempest brews within Britain's borders. Starmer's alignment with Carney has not gone unnoticed by his domestic foes, and the political consequences could prove as ruinous as Trump's retaliation. Nigel Farage, that perennial thorn in the establishment side, could seize this moment to portray Starmer as a reckless ideologue. Keir Starmer has sold us out to a Canadian upstart, he might thunder, inviting Trump's wrath upon our heads. The conservative press, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, would feast on the narrative, with headlines screaming Starmer's folly and Britain betrayed. A factory worker might lament on air, "I've worked the line for 20 years, and now Starmer's thrown us to the wolves." Such raw testimonies could erode Labour's working-class support, turning a diplomatic gamble into a political death knell. The Conservative Party, sensing blood, could orchestrate a relentless campaign. Right-wing MPs might accuse Starmer of jeopardising the special relationship, tabling motions of no confidence to flog his leadership publicly. Labour itself could splinter, leftists cheering defiance, moderates urging retreat, threatening to unravel under the strain. The business elite might turn too. CEOs of multinationals like AstraZeneca or BP could pen ultimatums, warning of investment cuts if Starmer persists. The City of London might tremble as American capital flees, the FTSE 100 plunging in a stark red warning. Protests could erupt in industrial heartlands, Sunderland, Birmingham, where workers and farmers vent fury at a government gambling with their livelihoods. No to Starmer's war, their placards might scream, as Reform UK surges, siphoning votes from a fracturing electorate. What drives Starmer to stake Britain's future on this perilous gambit? His calculus rests on a daring vision, that Britain can forge a new destiny as a linchpin in a counter-Trump coalition with Canada and Europe. He envisions a bloc united against Trump's economic imperialism, with Britain's voice amplified by defiant partners. It's a heroic narrative, casting him as a statesman of courage, willing to risk all for principle. Yet this aspiration is laced with peril. A chess game where Starmer, a mere knight, challenges a king. Trump thrives on dominance, and Starmer's strategy hinges on untested allies, a divided EU and a wounded Canada. If they falter, Britain stands alone, exposed to a titan's wrath. The automotive sector might collapse under US duties, pharmaceuticals could see billions vanish, and farmers might face bankruptcy, a nation brought to its knees by a gamble gone awry. Trump's endgame, should Starmer persist, is not a reprimand but annihilation. He could kill the US-UK trade deal, a lifeline to billions, with a single declaration: no deal for traitors. Wall Street could pull billions from British markets, the pound plummeting as inflation soars. A pivot to the EU might isolate the UK further, while a second Trump term could escalate this siege. Intelligence curtailed, NATO sidelined, Britain's global voice silenced. His tweets, "Starmer's a loser," could drive markets into panic, a White House Britain sanctions plan detailing tariffs and snubs. This is Trump's genius. He conquers with chaos, turning Britain into a cautionary tale. The human cost will be visceral. A Cumbrian farmer might watch his lamb rot as tariffs shut US markets, his farm facing foreclosure. A Birmingham machinist, redundant after factory cuts, might clutch a pink slip, her children's dreams deferred. A Manchester grocer could lament rising prices, bread's up 50 pence. As families choose between heat and food, schools might cut programs, the NHS buckle under drug shortages, and pensioners shiver through winter. These are not numbers but people, farmers, workers, families, caught in Trump's crosshairs, their lives the collateral of Starmer's hubris. Can he shield them, or has he condemned them to ruin? The battle lines are etched, the stakes towering. Britain teeters on an abyss, its fate tied to Starmer's stand against Trump's fury. Will he emerge a visionary, or the architect of catastrophe? The people wait, their lives hanging in the balance, as Trump's storm looms. Final call to action. Your voice is the pulse of this saga. Will Britain survive, or are we doomed? Comment below. Your words could echo through history. Subscribe now. Don't miss a twist in this drama. The future hangs by a thread, and we must bear witness together.